and I'm super excited for a lot of different things. I'm very excited because things are heating up, man, and things are heating up for the Phoenix Suns as well. It's some beautiful stuff. Some beautiful stuff going on, man. They are working wonders right now. They're doing what I don't think anybody, even Suns fans, were thinking that they were going to do. They're going to the Western Conference Finals, surpassing the Clippers, and then making their way to the NBA Finals, where they're now going to be facing the Bucks, which is not going to be an easy thing for them. So, question, how did we get here? I don't think anybody really knows the answer, but we can go ahead and take some guesses. First of all, I want to say this. As a Suns fan, I was not expecting any of this to happen. When they went 8-0 in the bubble, you know, I watched the games. I saw how everything was hinged on the Brooklyn Nets beating the Trailblazers, and then Damian Lillard went off at that end of the game, and because of how math worked, the Suns were not able to make the playoffs. But I saw what looked like a team going to be formed, but I did not think that that team was going to be as dominant as they are now. But, I mean, here's the deal. I am as unbiased as they come, and honestly, I just care about how the game of basketball is played and how things turn out for the art and the love of the basketball. And so no matter what happens, you know, I'm always going to be just the art first. With that being said, the Phoenix Suns are going to the freaking playoffs. Let's go. Let's go. Nobody expected this, but there were some very good telltale signs. First of all, the first thing that needs to be acknowledged is that James Jones, as an executive, is a freaking monster. He is a monster that I don't think anybody really was expecting, but he ended up building a team that is just like that, a team. You see other teams, whether it be in sports, basketball, I mean, or football, or anything else, and a lot of those sports, a lot of those teams sort of revolve around the strength of one player. For the Lakers, you take out LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and you don't really have anything. We saw that in the first round when Anthony Davis got hurt, and the ship sort of just went down. The Warriors are a little bit different. They have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but they're never going to get the same results that they got with their dynasty when Klay Thompson got hurt. With the Suns, the team is built so that there are very strong players, and we'll talk about them, but if one of those pieces of the puzzle comes out, the picture still can look passable. It's not going to be amazing. You'll still struggle, but a lot of the time, teams completely die when one of their star players gets hurt or can't play or anything like that. And the Suns aren't like that. They're very cohesive, and they're very much a team. Now, I'm going to take this off not because I don't like the Suns, but because the headphones are already hot enough, and I'm inside, so I don't need a hat. Here's the deal. That's the first thing. James Jones has built a team. He hasn't paid a bunch of money for one really, really good player, though there are a lot of really good players. Second thing, Monty Williams, surprisingly, survived more than 1 year being a coach of the Phoenix Suns. I think the record, I was talking with my dad about this yesterday, there was a coach, can't remember his name, he was there for 4 games and then he left. But for the past 10 years, ever since Nash and Stoudemire and all those people left, the Suns haven't really had a consistent coach. And now Monty Williams is on his 2nd year, and they are a championship team. And I think that that is one of the things that the Suns have done really, really well with, is really letting Monty Williams do his thing and really let him set the pace and set the example for everybody else. Of course, he has a lot of help with that. water. Beautiful thing. He has a lot of help with that, and one of those other really, really big parts was the latest addition to the Phoenix Suns, and that is Chris Paul. I'm not going to talk about him too much because everybody seems to be singing his praises, and it's very much deserved. But Chris Paul has really done a lot for this team. He has sort of, if this team was a arts and crafts assignment in a kindergarten class, you would have popsicle sticks and you'd have rubber bands and you'd have pipe cleaners, but he really makes something look decent because he's the glue that puts it all together. And it really shows through his leadership and his focus and drive that nothing really could have happened the way that it did if that foundation and that glue wasn't there in some capacity. And you see that glue can hold even when he's not at his 100% or even if he's not at his best. He was out for COVID for 2 games against the Los Angeles Clippers, who at the time, even without Kawhi, were looking to be the favorites to win it all after Brooklyn left. And they won 2 straight games without him. And funnily enough, they only started losing when he came back. That isn't a hit on Chris Paul at all, but it shows that the chemistry and the cohesion of this team is really, really strong. And Chris Paul being there only adds to that. And then, of course, you have the monster, the beast, Devin Booker. Devin Booker has been through everything. He's been through the stigma of people saying that he only carries empty stats. He's been through the worst of the worst when it comes to this Phoenix organization. He spent what many people thought was his absolute prime pulling crazy games for a team that couldn't break 30 wins. So people thought, oh, this guy is just full of empty stats. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to be anything. And then he ends up showing up, showing out. And when he's got a team surrounding him, again, common theme, the team surrounding him, he's able to do what he can and completely destroy games at his absolute peak. There are a little bit of inconsistencies and a lot of questions when it comes to what he can bring in the next couple of games because of that broken nose. But I think he's resolved a lot of those issues, especially in Game 6. He's answered a lot of those questions by pulling really, really good numbers for somebody who has that issue. Then, of course, you have people like DeAndre Ayton who have completely blossomed and really grown this year. And again, as an Arizona native, I will say this. I absolutely hated DeAndre Ayton when he played in college. And that wasn't because he's a bad guy or he's not a good player. He absolutely deserved to be the number 1 pick. The thing is, before I went to GCU, I was in the Valley, so the team that I rooted for was always ASU. And when ASU went to play U of A, they had no answer for DeAndre Ayton. But when he got to the NBA, for the first couple of years, people thought he was a fluke. I think everybody understands that he's not now because he's probably the most consistent center in the NBA right now. But I think all of those things happened at the exact time that they should have. You have a consistent coach. You have a powerful leader. You have a monster at the center position. You have a crazy scorer. And then you have 2 wing defenders that can defend really well. All put together by a guy that I don't think anybody was really expecting. And the owner of the Suns has to get credit too, because he really just decided, all right, I'm just going to step back with this. I understand I can't really play. I don't really know how to set up teams or anything like that. So, James, you do your thing. I'll do mine. And so I think all of those things put together built this Suns team that is really strong in the way that basketball should be strong. I think a lot of the times we get so focused on these star players. We get focused on the Kevin Durant's, we get focused on the LeBrons, and we get focused on Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, and we all try and figure out who's the greatest player of all time. And I think the Suns team is sort of the answer to that, because the real answer to that question is not who's the best player of all time. It's who's the best team of all time. I think anytime that we talk about the greatest people, the greatest to do it, they're only elevated when they have a team that is also really strong. Jordan had Pippen. Steph has Clay. LeBron had Kyrie. LeBron has AD now. And it really goes to show that the best team is going to beat the best player every time. Every time. And people are going to mark this off as like an asterisk season because people got hurt. And I will admit that in the imaginary world that nobody ever gets hurt in the playoffs and everything is perfect and beautiful and they just live in happy harmony and nobody ever has the idea and we're all cyborgs, then maybe this season and maybe this playoff run would have been a little different. But the crazy thing about basketball is that sometimes because people get physical, people get hurt physically. So that's not really a hypothetical that we really need to get into. So they have this great team. They have this great unity with them. How are they going to fare against the Bucks? Well, if you look at the Bucks, they're really, really strong. And they're one of the teams that I'm not going to try and discount at all because they have proven to not discredit them every step of the way. They beat a runner-up last year, the runner-up to the championship last year, and then they beat the Brooklyn Nets, who were the favorite to win. Yes, they had some injuries, and you can talk about that, but I've already said my piece about injuries. And then they beat the Atlanta Hawks, who were really the Cinderella season. And props to the Hawks. Sometimes the clock strikes midnight, and you just have to live with that. But you showed a really awesome progression, especially from last year. So you see a team like the Bucks that has powerhouses like Giannis, yes, but also crazy shooters like Chris Middleton, great point guard in Drew Holiday, a center that can copy Shaq on his best, prime Shaq in his best days, and Brook Lopez. And you really have this really even matchup because both of these teams are the best teams. Giannis is one of the best players right now. Yes, I will admit that. But again, like I said, it's always the best team that will beat the best player. Since I'm a fan of the Suns, I'm going to pull for the Suns the entire way. Do I think they'll win? I think they have as good of a chance as the Bucks do of winning. I think it's honestly 50-50. It really depends on Giannis, how he's doing, how the Suns can get over jitters for the finals, how Chris Paul can prove people wrong. I think, honestly, this year is the Suns' year. I'm going to be sad that the Suns lost if they lose. But I can be safe knowing that it's because the two best teams are playing against each other. And I think the Suns have one of, if not the best shots to win the title this year.